Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me tonight. This is Dr. Stephen Walker, broadcasting on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter every Tuesday and Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Mountain, and 6 p.m. on the West Coast. This is my mental health live stream. This isn't me coming on talking about how brilliant I am, but I am brilliant. No, I'm kidding. But this is about engaging with you guys on questions you may have about your own mental health, what's going on in your life. Hey, Samantha, how are you? Remember, again, this is about engaging with you about what's on your mind. I start with a topic and then I move into questions, Q&A about anything about the topic we're talking about anything that's on your mind. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and hit the notification button. Very important, okay, because the more people that subscribe, the more they put our videos higher and higher, and the more people can access information about mental health and mental illness and mental illness. That was good. And the more we can do that, the more we can talk about what's on our mind and deal with the issues that we have. Just as a fair warning, I do get some snarky questions sometimes. You get what you get sometimes. You know, I'm a very real person. You come at me with rudeness or attempting to troll or spam, you might get it back at you because, you know, you get what you get sometimes. But a lot of the questions and comments we're getting are very supportive and are appreciative of what we're trying to do. Because again, remember, we've got to talk about what's on our mind. We've got to normalize conversations about mental health and mental illness because there's not enough of that. If you check out my YouTube page, there's tons of content on there going back 5 years. Related to various topics. Feel free. Hey, Penny, how are you? Feel free to check out some of those videos, share them, talk about them, work on them. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about fear and how to face your fear. So remember, I'm going to talk about for about 10 to 15 minutes on this topic, and then I'm going to take questions and comments. And again, it can be a question and a comment about anything that's on your mind, anything that you're struggling with, anything that, you know, you need just some process time. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, so I'm trying to make myself available to people so that we can deal with what's on our mind, people. I mean, the bottom line is we don't talk about things on our mind enough, and this is a way to talk things out and deal with it from the perspective that it's okay that you have issues and it's okay that you've got things that need to be worked on. So, okay, let's get into that. So tonight's topic is how to face your fear. So there are many, obviously, people have many different fears. So I'm going to take a kind of a broad-based approach to fear as a mental and emotional construct in your mind, so that you can get an idea of how different techniques you can deal with fear. This is by no means an exhaustive talk on fear or how to manage it. This is things I've learned not only from my 20 plus years of working with people, but from you know, my own personal experiences and people around me and clients and things like that. So let's look at fear from the idea that if you look at fear, somebody once broke down, hey, Richard, how are you? Hey, Candace, how are you? Richard's rapping again for us, everybody. So, well, that's not a rap, actually, is it? Well, anyway, I'll get to that, but please keep your comments coming and your questions coming, and we're gonna deal with them. And Richard, please stay on so that we can talk about, you know, governmental overreach, tyranny, all of that. Okay, so please hang in there. So somebody once broke down fear into an acronym. Well, not an acronym, but it is an acronym in the sense that FEAR. So if you think of fear, FEAR, false evidence appearing real. Now that's a really good, I generally don't like, you know, catchphrases like that when you're taking the first letter of several words, but it's a great way, whoever came up with that, actually, it's a really a good way to look at fear. Because if you look at fear from the idea that it's false evidence that appears real to you in the present moment, what does that mean? So a lot of times when we have fear, when we're afraid of something, we are in the present moment projecting into the future. Okay, so we're in the present moment and now we're looking into the future thinking what I'm afraid of is going to happen. Okay, what I'm afraid of is going to happen. And that's one of the main things that you've got to work on if you've got a fear. So let's say you have a fear of, I don't know, a medical procedure, or you have a fear of having a talk with your boss, or you have a fear of snakes or whatever it is. Not exposing yourself to the fear is not going to help you. Now you may say, well, dude, that's the whole reason I let my fears control me, is because I don't want to expose myself to them. Now remember, there are many different ways you can expose yourself to fear. Okay. You can actually expose yourself to fear by going and doing what you're afraid of, or you can start mentally exposing yourself in your mind, thinking about what you're afraid of. Most people don't allow themselves to think about what they're afraid of because they're convinced that what they're afraid of is going to overwhelm them. We have a belief system that tells us, I can't deal with that if that happens. If A happens, then B is going to happen. And B is usually our reaction to A. Now, remember, we've talked about cognitive behavioral psychology and the ABCs of thinking. Remember, excuse me, A stands for activating event, B stands for belief, and C stands for consequence. And how that works is something activates us, we begin believing something about that activating event, and that belief has consequences in the form of feelings. So let's take a fear. Let's say you're afraid of, I don't know, let's take Richard's example, that there's too much government overreach and it's going to lead to tyranny. Or let's say that you're afraid that, you know, now that the Democrats are in charge of the government, that's going to lead to socialism, that it's going to lead to widespread chaos. The thing about fear is that most of our fears are being fed by stuff from our past. Okay. Most of our fear is being fed by past events, meaning that this happened in my past. So I have a memory of that. And now I project that into the future. And I'm convinced that that's going to happen. The key to managing fear in the present moment is creating the opposite in your mind to coexist with what you're afraid of. Okay, I don't know if you guys ever saw Seinfeld or whatever. Great show, great writers, but there were some episodes in there about the Summer of George, where George did the opposite of everything he he was normally be afraid of. Very, very key psychological concept, whoever wrote that, okay? Because that is one of the keys to managing our fears, is allowing in our mind for the opposite to happen than what we're afraid of. So let's take Richard's example, and feel free to you know, post some fears you have or some things that you worry about. Let's take the example that too much government overreach is going to lead to tyranny. So the first thing I would have Richard think about is, what do I mean by tyranny? What is he afraid of in tyranny? So if he's afraid that tyranny means government is going to be, you know, we're going to have, you know, Big Brother, and we're going to have socialism, and we're going to have whatever his definition of tyranny is, Richard, or whoever's afraid of that, needs to figure out what is pumping that out in him. Okay, why is he so afraid of something happening that he has no way of knowing whether it's going to happen or not? Now, sure, you could make the case that, well, it happened in the past, and if it happened in the past, it's going to happen in the future, but you have no way of knowing that. This is why it's key. Remember, please ask a question or make a comment, and I'll get to them. Don't hold them back. Ask a question. Post your own fears. Talk about things you're afraid of. We need to talk about things that are on our mind. The key, or one of the keys in this, is allowing the possibility that what I'm afraid of may not happen. What I'm afraid of may not happen. Then, if you look at it like a tree, then what emanates from that is my reaction to what might happen may not be as bad as I think, or I may be able to handle that. A lot of our fears, people, are being fed by a belief system that tells us, if A happens, I can't deal with that. I can't handle that. Great comment, Melissa. Let me get to that. That's a good one. Okay. I can't handle that. And the key to beginning to manage our fear is that we have to identify what we're afraid of and what is feeding that fear. Because most of our fears, if not all of our fears, are being fed by the belief system we have about how we're going to react to certain things if and when they come to pass. See, not only do we convince ourselves we know the future, and this is one of the techniques I use when I'm working with somebody, is we get them to look at the possibility that they don't know the future, because we don't know the future. You do not know what you're afraid of is going to happen, and you do not know how you're going to react to what you're afraid of happening, meaning that you don't know how you're going to react to what you're afraid of happening. We a lot of times feed into us. Remember, we've talked about self-talk. Oh God. Oh, I can't deal with that. That's going to suck. I can't handle that. If that happens, I'm going to fall apart. I'm going to lose it. I'm telling you, I'm going to lose it if that happens. And that is exactly what feeds fear. Because let's take, for example, if you're afraid to fly, okay? And somebody once said, I'm not afraid to fly. I'm afraid to crash. And that's true, okay? But the belief that the plane is going to crash is a belief. You have no way of predicting that. You sure planes crash, of course, but planes also don't crash. You've got to get into the belief system that's telling you the future, okay? Great, Lee J from YouTube. Thank you for posting that. I'll get to that. And he's dead on. And I'll read that comment in a question. Please keep your comments and questions coming, people. I'm going to get to them. I'm trying to talk about the topic first and then get to the comments and questions because, like I've said before, I take feedback well, and some of the feedback I've been getting is that I've been jumping around too much. The key to fear is questioning the belief that you know the future. Questioning the belief that not only do you know the future, but you know how you're going to react to that future. We get so convinced, oh God, when I lose my hair, oh man, that's going to suck. Nobody's going to want to date me. I'm going to look like my grandfather. I can't handle that. My life is going to be over. There's no point. Guess who used to think that way? Guess who has a good friend who's, made a fortune off of hair loss? Yeah, because of the fear of losing your hair, the fear of protein strands going away, and the self-identity that's going to lead to. We've got to expose ourselves to the possibility that if I lose my hair, yeah, that'll suck. I'd love to have my hair back, but I can handle that. I can deal with that. One of the things that feeds fear, as I've seen working with people over and over, is negative self-talk, meaning that we talk to ourselves in a way that convinces us that we're not going to be able to deal with things, okay? Oh, no, I can't deal with that. I can't handle that. That's the worst case scenario. This is my biggest fear coming true. We don't think beyond the fear. So we set things up in our mind where our fear is the end. There's no end. There's no after the fear. You've got to create situations in your mind where you think, okay, well, if that happens, then what? Then what? What am I going to do if that happens? That's the exposure process. That's you exposing yourself to the fear. You're now exposing yourself to what you're afraid of. So let's recap a little bit. Identify what you're afraid of. You've got to think about it. That's the mistake a lot of people do is, oh no, I don't want to, great Jen, getting to your question in a second. I don't want to deal with with that fear. I can't think of that. I can't handle that. That's the problem, people. One of the main specifiers in the DSM, the book of mental disorders, when it comes to PTSD, is denial, is avoidance. We avoid the thing that caused the trauma. We don't want to think about it. So guess what the trauma does? It just grows literally like trees in our head. You got to expose yourself to it, okay? You've got to allow for the possibility that what you're afraid of may not happen. Now, that in of itself is very difficult for people, because what that does is that causes conflict in their mind. That causes conflict where, well, wait a minute. Okay, Steve, I'll get to you in a second. Okay, please. Yeah, and EMDR, we're having a guest on not next week, the week after next, who is an EMDR trainer and specialist. So we're going to be talking about EMDR. So one of the things that we have to do, yes, exactly, Ronald, facing our fear to take our power back. Exactly. But we don't like to face our fear. Why? Because we don't like to be uncomfortable. We don't like pain. That induces anxiety. And we live in a culture that avoids pain. Pain killer, kill the pain, kill it. Now, I'm not talking about people who have chronic debilitating pain. I feel you. You want a numbing of that pain, but the problem is when we're dealing with our fears, or when we're not dealing with our fears, what happens is that fear sits in our mind as a reality. Think of men who are afraid to approach women, or women who are afraid to exert themselves in the workplace, or whatever holds somebody back. There's a belief system. Remember, ABCs of thinking: activating event, belief, consequence. Something activates me. Oh, I can't stand up to my boss, or I can't ask for a raise, or I can't go talk to that beautiful woman. She's going to reject me. Let's take that one, for example. Okay, so then she rejects me. Then what? Oh, it's going to confirm to me my worst fears, that I'm a loser. Really? I'm a loser? That is what is keeping the fear in place, is unquestioned beliefs. Where the fear that we have, and I've seen this over and over and over in people, the fear that a lot of people come in, and when they're working with somebody in the mental health field, is they've spent years and years and years knowing that they've got this particular issue, but they're afraid to deal with it because they've built up a belief system in their mind that says, there's no hope. I can't work on that. You can't. Old dogs. What is it? You can't teach old dogs new tricks. And that's the fear that keeps things in place, people. That is the fear that keeps things in place, is the belief system that you cannot heal. And I see this over and over. And I have people say, like, who avoid medical appointments and things. I can't handle bad news. I can't deal with the bad news. Listen to that. I can't deal with it. That is being fed by a belief system. You can't deal with it because you're not allowing yourself to even begin to think it's possible that you can deal with it. That it's possible you can deal with it. It's possible that the other possibility could exist, which is you may get bad news, but you can handle it. You can get bad news, but there may be a solution. People are so conditioned, and a gentleman that we're going to get to talked about conditioning. We are so conditioned by our past. We are so conditioned by the things that have happened in our past that we don't even realize that most of our fears are being kept in place by shit, excuse my language, crap we've learned from our past about what we're capable of doing. Don't ever use that word. Sorry, my son's in here. Okay, that's one of the main things that is holding us in place. Good question, Ron. No, Juan, fear is not unhealthy. Fear is built into us. That if we didn't have fear and anxiety and worry in us, we would never have evolved out of caves. And I'm going to get to that. So one of the things that, or one of the main things I do when I'm working with somebody is we question their belief system by helping them realize where they learned that belief system. This is where I had a huge, or not huge, but a debate with Albert Ellis. He's a well-known psychologist, and I did some training with him. And he was like, "Oh, no, you don't need the past. What do you? Bless you. You don't need the past. What do you need to look at the past?" And I had the opposite belief. I believe that people need to figure out where they learned these beliefs in order to begin working on them, because ultimately people start believing, "Oh, I'm just a crazy person. So I'm going to get to the questions and comments right now, but the main thing I'll leave you guys with tonight about fear is you've got to begin to think about what you're afraid of, okay? You've got to begin to think about, that's my son sneezing, that you've got to begin to think about what you're afraid of in your mind and start slowly exposing yourself to that and allow yourself to create alternate realities where either that fear doesn't manifest. It's possible it may not be as bad as you think it. You have to allow for that, deal with the anxiety, that kind of polarized feeling of positive and negative, and then go beyond that and allow yourself to talk yourself through it, that if that fear manifests, I can handle that. There's a way beyond that. Now, remember, as I said in the beginning here, this is not any exhaustive talk on handling fear, okay? This is a talk about fear as a construct and ways to deal with it, okay? So let's get to some comments and questions here, and then see where we're at, okay? Are you okay? What's wrong? Okay, Bubba, you're okay. Sorry, my son just sneezing. So let's get to some comments and questions here. Let's get to Richard's question about, excuse me for 1 second. Come. Go up to your mother. Go. Go. Stop. Go up to me. Hold that there. Go. Babe. Sorry about that. Live TV. Son had a bloody nose from sneezing too much. Anyway, so this is one of the things we need to work on, is the belief system that is holding the fear in place. So let's take Richard's comment about government overreach will become tyrannical. How does he know that? How does he know that government overreach will become tyrannical? How do we know? Yeah, allergy attack or something. How does he know that government overreach will become tyrannical? He's got to expose himself to, what am I afraid of? What is going to happen in a society where government takes over? What's going to happen? How can that even happen? How can things happen like that in this day and age with the internet and live TV and live streaming? How could anything happen in one of the reasons Hitler and these despots grew, because they grew in the dark. Before anyone knew what the hell was happening, it was the cancer had spread all over the country, all over the world. Question that belief that you know the feeling, know what's going to happen. Let's see. Melissa's saying, I have a fear of being okay. Well, Melissa, we got to look at what that means to you. What does it mean to you to be afraid of being okay? What does it mean that you're going to be, what would, like, if you're okay, if you become okay, what are you afraid of? Play that out in your mind. So imagine, I would encourage Melissa to say, well, if I'm okay, what does that mean? What am I afraid of? She's saying it's easier to just be broken. Well, Melissa, I would argue that. I would make the case that is being broken easier. It may be, you may be used to it, if that's what you mean by easy. You may be used to it. You may be used to feeling broken. So that leads you to think that that's easier, but that doesn't mean it's easier. Think of what how being broken affects you. Who broke you? We got to deal with those feelings. Okay. There's a comfort in chaos, or so I'm told. So does, yeah, to a degree, Samantha. Oh, that's not true. Okay. Richard's saying it's bigger than Watergate. So Richard is thinking that there's a big conspiracy going on that no one knows about. I think that's part of the election. So Richard, again, if you're worried about the election being stolen, or that there was a big conspiracy that stole the election, then you're going to have a lot of anxiety about that, thinking, and anger, thinking that there's a whole system in place that's keeping us away from, keeping you away from the leader you wanted. Lee J is saying, believe it or not, fear of ghosts and death, a fear that was conditioned since childhood. Excellent, Lee. Exactly. So there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people have fear of supernatural things and death. I would encourage you, Lee, to look at what death means to you. Expose yourself to that in your mind, slowly. Remember, don't flood yourself, but just slowly expose yourself to what death means to you. I don't know if you think death is, You'd blink out and it's gone. Are you afraid of death, meaning that there are people in your life now that you love, that you're afraid of not being around and not having, with you? That is what we need to expose ourselves to. Excuse me. We have to, fear feeds off of ignoring it. Fear feeds off of, oh, no, I don't want to think about that happening. No, I don't want to think about that. And yes, you're right, Lee. Fear is conditioned from childhood. So if you want to follow up, Lee, how did you learn that? How did you learn that? Candace is saying, I'm afraid of my dreams. I'm afraid that I will willfully go back to my destructive habits. Exactly. Well, Candace, and many of you remember Candace was on a while ago, and Candace and I have done some work together. You've got to begin asking yourself, what will happen after you go back to, if you go back to your destructive habits? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of happening? Are you afraid that all the work you've done is going to magically go away? It's not going to be there? That you're going to stay broken again? You've got to expose yourself to that and use the self-talk skills, use your ability to talk yourself and create an alternate reality in your mind that's separate, that's opposite from that. Like, maybe I'll go back to my destructive habits briefly and bring myself out of it. Or maybe I won't go back to my destructive habits. Maybe my destructive habits have lost their hold on me. You've got to allow for the opposite of what you're afraid of to coexist in your mind. Otherwise, we're polarized into believing all the Democrats suck, all the Republicans are racist. We have to allow for an opposite in our mind, or the fear just proliferates in our mind, okay? Melissa's saying, exactly. The change is scary. You don't know what to expect. It's easier to see comfort in what you're used to. Exactly. You're welcome, Melissa. Jeno is saying, I fear being negatively judged by anyone who sees me, to the point where I don't leave my home sometimes. Okay, Jeno, thank you for sharing that. Nothing wrong with that. That's like you saying, I got a pain in my knee and it bothers me and sometimes I can't run. Why is physical pain acceptable and mental and emotional pain is not? Thank you for sharing that. So, Jeno, what I would encourage you to look at is, what belief system do you have about being judged? Is the judgment you're afraid people are doing to you, is that a projection? Meaning that, is Jeno projecting outward her own negative judgment of herself? Is Jeno so negatively judging herself that she's assuming that everyone else is judging her? Or is Jen very, sorry to call you Jeno, but is Jen very judgmental of other people? Does she judge other people, so she assumes that that's what other people are doing? What's the fear, Jen? Remember, false evidence appearing real. If you get judged, what are you afraid is going to happen internally to you? You think you're going to fall apart and never reconstitute if someone judges you negatively? These are the things we need to get into, Jen. What happened to you as a kid, sister? And I call everyone sister and brother, sorry. But Jen, what happened to you as a kid? What did you learn? Did you go through some trauma? Was your mom or dad very judgmental of you? These are the questions we need to ask ourselves, because otherwise, all that conditioning, all that trauma from our past is just pumping out inside of us, and we're not dealing with the infection. The infection a lot of times is our conditioning. Okay? So, feel free to follow up, Jen. Richard saying, that's why we plan for the worst and desensitize ourselves to anger and pain. I hear you. That's one way. I wouldn't necessarily say plan for the worst. That expression, expect the best, but prepare for the worst. Sorry, people. Depending on your past, preparing for the worst will begin predominating you. And you will then be in a pessimistic attitude, constantly preparing for the worst. And expecting the best will be relegated in the background. Oh, well, come on, that's not going to happen. Everyone has to deal with their fears in a different way. I do not advocate for planning for the worst and desensitizing ourselves to anger and pain. I don't think that's a good strategy, honestly, Richard, because the more you desensitize to anger and pain, the more you're going to desensitize yourself to pleasure and happiness. Desensitizing does not compartmentalize only to the negative. But I hear you. If you've been through a lot, if you've been hurt a lot, let down a lot, people have hurt you, yes, you build up calluses, you build up resistance in a way that keeps you away from what you're afraid of. Remember, people, please share this if you're watching this. please ask a question and share this. This is a mental health live stream so that people can talk about what's on their mind. People can engage with me. I'm a licensed psychologist. You can engage with me. So I am not a proponent of desensitization. Now, you want to expose yourself to that so you become acclimated to how you feel, but that's not desensitizing you. That's an absorption process. So I feel you, Richard. Richard's been on the show before and we talked about some things, and, there's some things that have happened to Richard that have caused him to be pessimistic and skeptical about things and people's intentions. So I hear you. Steve from YouTube. Hey, Steve. The frustration is, even if we rationalize fear and challenge ourselves, certain trauma is too deep-rooted. PTSD even. I guess EMDR therapy is needed in some cases, yes, or is our mind enough? It's a lot of things, but bro, what you just said, certain trauma is too deep-rooted, with all due respect, my brother, I challenge that. How do you know it's deep-rooted? We don't know this. We tell ourselves that. We tell ourselves that trauma is so deeply rooted in me that it's never going to heal. And guess what? We don't heal, or we don't work on it. I would encourage you, Steve, I don't know if you've done any work on it, but whatever trauma you have that you believe is deep-rooted, the first thing I would encourage you to start is stop telling yourself that. I mean, imagine if I was your friend, Steve, and every day, every 10 times a day, I was telling you, dude, bro, your trauma is deep rooted, man. It's never gonna change. It's too deep rooted, dude. It's too deep rooted. It's too deep rooted. Okay, you don't know it's deep rooted, that deep rooted, bro. I mean, that's a colloquialism, and I'm not coming down on you. I'm just challenging your belief system a little bit to give you some hope. But start telling yourself, if it's deep rooted, I can work on it. I can heal those roots. I can heal that trauma. People, trauma can be healed. The fear that trauma can't be healed is a learned thing. That is a learned thing, that you believe your trauma can't be healed, or that it's so deep rooted that nothing can be done for that. So Steve, challenge the belief system, challenge the fear in your mind. Is EMDR a good therapy? Yeah, tune in. I don't know if you follow my Facebook or please subscribe. If you're on YouTube right now, please subscribe if you're on YouTube. But I'm going to have an EMDR specialist come on, and she's going to talk about different techniques of EMDR. So yes, is our mind enough? It's a combination of a lot of things, brother, but trauma can heal. Will you be, miraculously free and, rainbows shooting out of your butt? Maybe, but it's going to take some work. But trauma can heal. Okay. Trauma, like any other wound, trauma, there's a degree of healing that can be brought to trauma. Okay. Definitely, Ron. Facing our fears takes our power back, but the fear is that we can't face it. Hey, hello from Russia, GVMID. How are things in Russia? Hope you guys are going to allow some opposite views, not lock up the opposition so much, but I'm sure, there's a lot of internal stuff going on there. Melissa said, I used to believe the world was filled with pain and that everyone was mostly nasty people, but I spent 9 years learning to find the good. I hadn't realized that my worldview was skewed due to my abuse. Exactly. Well, Melissa, I hope you're taking that into you too, realizing that you're not a nasty person because you may be nasty once in a while, learning to find the good in you, learning that you're not just filled with pain. Okay. That's the main thing, is remember, I've talked about this over and over. Your relationship with yourself is key. Okay. Thanks, Suzanne, for sharing that with Ashton. How could I get over my huge fear of driving? I was in an accident when I was 4. It's not fair to get my friends to drive me everywhere all the time. Well, Jen, this is the first step. This is the first step, is realizing I have a fear of driving. It was because I was in an accident at 4. Here comes the kicker, Jen. It's okay that I have this fear. It's okay that I have to get my friends to drive me everywhere right now, but I got to work on it. But I have to deal with that fear. So how do you want to get over your huge fear of driving? The first step is being okay that you have a fear and finding somebody in the mental health field who can deal with helping you slowly expose yourself to that fear and start creating an alternate reality in your mind, which is Jen can drive again one day and still be afraid, but can manage that fear. that maybe, Jen, it's possible that you can drive and you won't get into an accident. You won't. One of the things that I hear from people over and over who have gone through trauma, I hate that I'm like this. I hate it's so pathetic. I hate that I can't stand that and people, that self-hate keeps the trauma locked in. Okay. So Jen, the first thing you have to say to yourself tonight is, it's okay that I have this fear of driving. It's trauma driven, meaning it's driven by my trauma at 4 years old. I got to work on it. And there's nothing wrong with working on it. There's nothing wrong. You took the first step today, talking about it openly without any shame. But Jen, you can work on it. Okay. You've got to find somebody licensed and who has experience working in the mental health field that can help you deal with it. Sure, podcasts, books, all of that is good stuff, but you need to be aware of who is giving you mental health advice, okay? There are way too many people out there on the internet who have no experience in the mental health field, have no license, and are narcissist specialists or early childhood specialists or rape or survivors, and they have no clue what helped them, thinking it's going to help you. It is not one size fits all in this field. Okay. Juan is saying, is fear unhealthy? So I hope that helped, Jen. Feel free to shoot me some messages on YouTube or whatever. And I can, a great resource is Psychology Today. Just put in Psychology Today Therapist Finder. Great resource for people. There are a lot of online therapists now. What is that swimmer guy? Phelps is now advocating for mental health, and that's great because we need people to understand that if you're not ashamed of, remember, everyone has a degree of physical illness. Everyone has a degree of mental illness. If you're not ashamed of your physical illness to the degree that you don't get help for it, you shouldn't be ashamed of your mental illness, because we all have a degree of mental illness, myself included. Okay. Samantha's saying, replying, so sweet of you to remember I'm doing pretty good. So far, so good. I really want to deal better. I'm working on it. Is more great, Samantha. Good. I'm really wanting to deal better. Then you got to work through, what does dealing better feel like? If I dealt with it better, what would that feel like? Thanks, Samantha. Juan is saying, is fear unhealthy? Like I said before, no, fear is not unhealthy. You're never going to get rid of fear. I mean, you don't see classes called anger elimination. This is a class on anger elimination. Why? Anger is a part of us. Fear is part of us. It's always anger management, fear management, managing the fear. Fear is wired into us. It's a biological evolutionary thing wired into us that has helped perpetuate our species. Otherwise, Homo sapien would be dum, and we wouldn't have gotten to this point. A certain degree of fear, a certain degree of anxiety, a certain degree of worry is healthy. The problem is we take it too far, and it's a lot of times being driven by unhealed trauma. Okay, yes, Suzanne is saying mind controlled. Absolutely. Let's see. Juan is saying, what about rational versus irrational fear? Good question. You got to work through that. You got to understand what the difference in your own mind is between rational and irrational fear. Rational fear is, if I get too close to that cliff, I might fall and die. That's a rational fear. An irrational fear is, you know what? I'm not going to go on this hike because if there's a cliff there, I'm not going to be able to deal with it. Those are irrational fears. An irrational fear is, if I hear bad news, I can't handle that. That's an irrational fear. An irrational fear is, let's take racism. An irrational fear is all black people, all white people, all Jews, all whatever the opposite of you are all bad. If I can't handle being around, those are irrational fears. You've got to identify rational from irrational. And most irrational fears are stemming out of rational fears, meaning we're taking a rational fear and we're amping it up way too much. Okay, great comment, Juan. Thank you. Melissa's saying, I hear teaching them to curse early takes all the fun out of cursing. Yeah, I hear you. It's funny because he hears me sometimes and he said, Papa, don't say that, or I'm not supposed to say that word and all of that. So yeah, hey, I'm not perfect, but we definitely have a very open relationship with our son, and help him deal with how he's feeling early on. Bless you. Yeah, his nose is fine. Fear will motivate you or paralyze you. Exactly, Richard, exactly. But the key is, in fear that motivates you or paralyzes you, is you've got to identify what you're afraid of. Meaning, so if you're motivated by fear, then I would ask you, what happens if the fear is not there? What motivates you? Okay. If you're paralyzed by fear, what are you afraid of that may happen? You got to question the fear. But like I said, when I started talking about this, questioning the fear involves being okay with that you're afraid of something. And that is a step that many people take a long time to get through in their lives, is being okay with being afraid, being okay with having weakness, scared, anxiety. Oh, it's weak. I don't want to accept it. Okay. Um, Richard's saying only you can decide if you'll run towards a battle or run from it. You could do both. Sometimes you got to run from a battle. Sometimes you got to run towards a battle. But it's not an all or nothing thing. Running from a battle is sometimes a way to regroup with your troops and then come back. It's not about either or. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, he'll be fine. He has these allergy attacks, and yes, thank you, saline spray, and thank you. Yes, life happens. Absolutely. This is live. This is not edited. I keep it live so that people understand that this is, a live stream. So the idea is to interact. It's a question and answer with people about mental illness and mental health. Okay. Melissa's saying, I'm used to always handling something wrong with me. I think I'm scared to think that I've been torturing myself for many years. Well, Melissa, massive doses of the It's Okay pill, sister. It's okay that I've been torturing myself for many years. It's okay. Remember, Melissa, you're torturing yourself because you were tortured. You're treating yourself the way you were treated. That's why I keep talking about the relationship with self. You have to say to yourself, it's okay that I've been torturing myself, but I need to work on that. Do I deserve this torture? Do I deserve this? Okay. Suzanne saying, Jason Chris has a great podcast on SoundCloud. He is a world leading self-sabotage. Okay. Well, I hope if he's a self-sabotage and mind control expert, I hope he's got some licensure. I hope he has got some mental health training, because, well, anyway, I'll look him up, but I hope he's got some sort of training and experience in the field. Steve is saying, in a confidence building class, I was once told to imagine the worst case scenario so that whatever actually happens in real life will never be as bad. To a degree, Steve, I would say that that's a good exercise. I would also say, imagine the best case scenario. Don't leave the worst case scenario out there as the only case scenario. But yes, I would just tweak that a little bit for you and say, imagine the worst case scenario happening, and then imagine yourself dealing with it. Imagine what comes after the worst case scenario. Then allow the best case scenario to happen in your mind. How would you handle that? Don't allow, this idea of, again, like I said before, prepare for the worst. Depending on how you were raised, if your orientation is to prepare for the worst, that's going to predominate your thinking. Okay. And you're going to think that pessimism is I'm not being pessimistic, I'm being realistic. Okay. Melissa is saying that that in somehow makes it true that nothing was wrong with me and I simply choose to be this way. I don't think the logic makes sense and I actively avoid thinking about it. Melissa, sister, you did not choose to be this way. Okay? You did not choose to be this way. That's like telling somebody who has a pretty bad break in their leg, oh, you chose to have a limp. You chose to have to, it's not that way. You did not choose to be this way. A lot of unhealed trauma chooses you. It's the trauma that's pushing you forward. You did not choose to be this way. Now, you can choose to work on it and heal it, but telling yourself, I chose to be this way, in my opinion, is another form of victim bashing, victim blaming. The trauma you went through, Melissa, is causing you to feel this way, is causing you to be this way. Now, I'm not saying you stay there. Oh, well, it's a trauma, so I'm going to be stuck. No, the trauma is making me feel this way. I got to work on the trauma. I got to deal with that trauma. Okay. Yes, it sure does. Thank you, Suzanne. Lean into the and feel all the things. Yes, but how you feel it is important too. Candace is saying, I remind myself of how it was before, but I still carry the fear. Yeah. And that fear is carrying you in a lot of ways. Absolutely. And one of the things that, we're working on is exposing ourselves to that fear. And when you say, Candace, I remind myself of how it was before, I don't know if you're talking about what was before, when you were traumatized or when you were afraid or what. Great, Suzanne. I'm glad you're liking it. Hey, Kat, how are you? Or still Evanora, how are you? Kat still hasn't wanted to return. Yes, it looks like she'll be away for the foreseeable future. Well, I hope you guys are taking care of her. And Kat, if those of you who don't know, Kat is has DID, dissociative identity disorder. One of her alters, Evanora, is in control right now. And I would just encourage you, Evanora, to remember Kat was a traumatized individual, and you guys need to rally around her and help her heal and soothe her. Okay, please, no more hating each other. You guys all have to learn to live together and assimilate back into one. It can happen, and you can all still be part of it without being. Okay, so Evanora, take care of Kat. Okay, Melissa saying, I'm working on being okay with there being an issue to address and fix. Beautiful that I can be mending and stuck at the same time. Exactly. Mending and stuck. Exactly. That's the polarity. That's the duality. Okay. Exactly. I'm working on allowing contradictions to exist. That's the whole idea of the yin yang, sister. You need the opposite. If all of a sudden the earth lost the South Pole, we'd cease to live. If an atom got rid of its negative electron, the atom would collapse or explode. Okay. Great. Allow the contradictions to exist. Absolutely. Because that's the yin yang. That's the tension that keeps the circle together. But what are we told? Oh, we shouldn't be like this. It's horrible that you're like this. You're a disgrace. You shouldn't be. No, people, it's about allowing the opposites of us, the plurality of selves. Okay. All the parts of us to coexist without wanting to destroy them. Richard is saying PSYOP stock, yeah, besides the Mossad and intel agencies is the best, worse, and they will break you, only attempt to reprogram you. I hear you. Richard's been through some pretty significant psychological scarring, and he's talked openly about that, and he's in a process of healing. But Richard, I don't know where you are with talking this out with somebody, but I would encourage you to work on some of that programming that got put into you. And it's not so much about reprogramming yourself, it's about programming yourself in a different way. It's not about unlearning, it's about learning something. Excuse me, that was my salad. I apologize. Hey, real, live. So let's see. And leads to depression. Kelly, where's Kelly's first comment? Kelly, I don't know what you're referring to. And leads to depression. Fear, yeah, fear can definitely lead to depression. Jenna is saying you're right. That it's kind of my own judgment of myself that I think other people are thinking. Exactly. And I was bullied. And there you go. There's a trauma a lot in school, and I'm not over it. And Jen, you're self-bullying. You're bullying yourself a lot. I was so long ago, but it still affects me every day. And it's okay. You didn't ask to be bullied. You didn't ask for that. Okay, Jen? Remember, bullying, people think, oh, you're still affected by stuff that happened in high school or grammar school. Let me tell you something, people. Bullying is one of the worst things that can happen to you when you're younger, because you're at a developmental age and there's so many nuances to being bullied, like, oh, I don't know, the anxiety of going to friggin' school every day. Oh God, what's going to happen? How am I going to be embarrassed? All right. So Jen, it sounds like you got some trauma in there. Samantha saying a lot of times it's a pendulum, back and forth, in and out. Exactly. Up and down. Exactly. Wave. We want to avoid spikes up and down. Those are the destructive ones. Waves. We've got to learn that things wave in and wave out. But when we're in this down wave, we're like, oh God, oh no. And then that deepens the wave. Jen is saying my mom was judging me for something all the time. I was always doing something wrong, but I don't even know what exactly, Jen. And now the way your mom treated you, Jen, is how you treat yourself. That's how trauma it does. I thank you for sharing tonight, Jen. This can be the beginning of a small shift, but you gotta work on Jen's relationship with Jen. It's not gonna magically go away tonight. But what I'm trying to give you is hope that the way you learn to deal with yourself, you can learn a new way to deal with yourself. Okay, you can. Okay, you can. So good. This is your first step, Jen. Start saying to yourself tonight, it's okay that this is still affecting me, but I got to work on it. It's okay that I'm still broken in some ways, but I got to work on it. We got to start facing that fear of the accident early on and how that caused you to be afraid of driving. Okay, it don't flood. Slow exposure, Jen, but find somebody to talk this out with, okay? He challenged me and he won, thankfully. Good. Candace, remind me what you're talking about. Candace, you're amazing. Replying, thank you so much. Okay, great. Trauma cannot own you, then it wins. Exactly. But a lot of times we don't even like to admit that we're still traumatized because that means we're weak. That means we're not perfect. And a lot of us learn early on that perfection, we have to be perfect. So Candace is saying in all caps, mine is healing and I never thought it would. Exactly. And that is one of the main things, like with Jen, that keeps trauma in place. Okay. I'll never heal. It's never going to heal. Oh, I'm going to be like this the rest of my life. And that belief alone affects how we heal. Okay. That belief alone will affect whether we can heal or not. Okay. Thanks, Richard. Take it easy, man. We must love ourselves. Yeah, but before we love ourselves, Sam, we got to get to know who we are. We got to get to know what selves we are. Absolutely, though, love is the end game in many ways, and then it just goes from there. Good night, Doc. Appreciate your platform. Appreciate you too, brother. Please, Richard, work on some of that trauma that you went through. Good night, Richard. Take it easy. Night, Sam. Let's see. Steve is saying, sorry to jump in, Jeno. Sounds like your mother is projecting her own against you. Yeah, her own issues. Hope you can separate that from now. And great. That's great advice, but that takes work. That takes work. Sounds like Jen had multiple traumatic events, car crash, bullying, an oppressive mother. And I'm sure your mom wasn't all bad, but yeah, if your mom held you to standards that were unrealistic to attain, then you're going to put that upon yourself. Okay. Juan is saying, how do I help my little cousin about rational and irrational fears? They're not very good at questioning fears. Well, I don't know how old your cousin is, bro, but what I would encourage you to do is start talking to them about their fears. If they're very affected by the fears, then they need to work on them with somebody who knows how to work on them. And, people, it's not just because I'm a psychologist that I push, talking things out. It's because it works. It works. Talking things out over a period of time, hearing your thinking, hearing the way you think, getting feedback to help you manage that works. Why do I believe that? How does not talking about things help? How does keeping everything inside help? We got to get it out. But we live in this society where it's like, oh, no, don't talk about how you feel. No, don't. People are going to judge. And that's what keeps this work from really proliferating out. We need to work on how we think and feel. We need to work on how polarized our thinking is. Okay. So Juan, encourage them to talk about their fears. Okay. Before they start questioning them, they got to start talking about them. All right. Kelly saying my comment about depression was in response to someone speaking. Oh, I gotcha. Okay, thanks. I gotcha. Lee is saying Dr. Walker has given a lot of sentences that are good for self-talk. We'll try to repeat them often. Great, Lee. Great to hear. That's why I'm doing this, man. It's why it's free. It's why there's no charge. Melissa's replying to Candace. Hearing your story really helped me come to terms with the fact that it is possible. Beautiful. That it is the right step to make for me to move forward in my growth. Great, Melissa. Great. And the fact that you're on here twice a week is therapeutic for you just to be able to talk through it and type it out and hear yourself and hear other people. It's great. because that's why I'm doing this. We got to talk things out, people. That's why I own that domain name, talkthingsout.com. You got to talk things out of you. You've got to. There's multiple things that people aren't dealing with that are affecting them on a daily basis, and we're not even aware of it. How polarized our thinking can get. Okay. Juan is saying, what would you have said to the kid from Sandy Hook who may have been afraid of going back to school? Like the problem isn't really solved. So that rational or irrational? No, that's a very rational fear. What happened at Sandy Hook? You know, it's a very rational fear to be afraid when you've been traumatized like that someone's going to bring another AR-15 and mow people down. It's a very rational fear. The thing is, when we have fears based out of trauma, the irrational part is when we start projecting outward to the whole world or to the future. I'm always going to be like this. No, I'll never be safe again. I'm never going to get over this, not get over, but I'm never going to be able to manage this trauma. Those are the irrational parts of rational fears. A lot of fear, like I said before, a lot of irrational fear starts as a rational fear, and then you keep cranking up the heat on it, and you don't question it, and you don't manage it, and now it's an irrational fear. Okay, so what I would say to somebody at Sandy Hook is not a one and done, but it would be working through the trauma of what they saw and the fear of being killed again. You know, unfortunately, it's a very real fear for a lot of high schoolers and kids in school that somebody could kill them in school. I mean, I'm 55 years old. I never had that fear. Never had that. Imagine living with that on top of all the other crap we go through in high school. Good. Candace and Melissa are interacting. Candace is saying, when I was hiding things and lying to my husband about everything, I do not want to get back to the level of chaos again. Exactly. Candace, expose yourself to that. Remind yourself what that anxiety was of when he was going to find that out again. Feel that. That's good. Like Juan is talking about. That's a rational fear, meaning I'm afraid to go back to that. That's a good thing to be afraid of. If I'm walking near a cliff and something's like, dude, don't get too close to that cliff, that's a good fear. So whatever cliff you're feeling that you're getting close to, Candace, keep feeling it, okay? Kat is saying, or Evanor is saying, we're here to protect her, and that's why we're out as far as long as she needs us to be. Great. I hope so. But Evanor, at some point, you know, you guys know Kat is the hub of the wheel, okay? And we're going to have to let Kat lead and take care of everybody instead of the other way around, because she has the ego. She's building up the ego strength to do that, okay? Candace and Melissa are interacting. Jen is saying, great to Jen, first steps, beautiful. You challenged me when I said I was broke. Good, exactly. We need to challenge the belief that we're broken. We need to challenge the belief that we're broken and we can't heal. I call it Humpty Dumpty syndrome, the idea that I'm going to fall off the wall and never be able to put back together again. That's a belief. That's a belief that a lot of people learn through their upbringing. Okay, great, but Candace, you have to keep questioning that you're broke. You have to make it okay that parts of you are still broken, and say it's okay, and I got to work on that, because the hatred of being broken keeps us broken. Okay, Jen is saying, thank you for not judging me. You're welcome. No, why would I judge you? So you have no idea the fears I've worked through in my life. So my catchphrase with my clients is, I am what I treat. I've been there in many, many things. So you're welcome, Jen. Please come back. Please share this. Let us know how things develop when you let us know how things are working. You're working through. And remember, Jen, tonight, it's okay that I have this fear. It wasn't my fault. I didn't ask for that accident at 4. I'm a victim of a motor vehicle accident. I know the word victim has been hijacked by the YouTube mental healthers. Don't be a victim. Don't be a victim. You have no idea what you're friggin' talking about by telling people that. People are victims of a lot of people's crap. Now, staying a victim, different story. Anyway, sorry, I get worked up, and you know, I love what I do. Let's see. Everyone's interacting with each other. Okay. Wow. 100 messages tonight. Beautiful. Kat saying, Evan saying part of our being away is we're coming off lorazepam. Before it's no longer, it's beneficial to us where we're changing meds. Okay, great. Okay. But really, Evanora, you guys have to let Kat lead at some point. She can take care of everybody. Okay. You guys got to start letting Kat be the hub of the wheel. Okay. Steve is saying you speak. Oh, thanks, man. It's 3 a.m. over here. Wow, you must be over in Europe or something. But I feel that I must stay awake and hear your valuable. Thank you. Well, I appreciate that, Steve. That's why I'm doing it, my brother. That's why I'm doing it. You know, I got into this field. I left a successful business world in my late 20s, went into teaching, making $8 an hour. Loved every minute of it, but realized I liked dealing with the issue. You know what I mean? I felt more connected to dealing with the issues that some of the kids were dealing with and their parents. So then I went and got my master's in counseling and then my doctoral. So that's why I'm doing it, because there's so many good people like you, man, who are struggling unnecessarily because of how we hate ourselves for how we feel. We beat ourselves up, and we use that conditioning from the past to just beat us down. Okay. So let's see. Candace is saying, Doc, because of you and your guidance, I am so far along in my healing process. Well, thank you, Candace. And you know what I'm going to say? You work with me to know it ain't me, sister. You're the healing agent. Okay. I'm just helping that part of you. I appreciate that. Don't, as Candace knows, I mean, obviously when you do this work, you like to know you're helping people. It's selfish in that respect. I do it because I like to help people, but you are the change agent, Candace, that the healing is in you. You are the change agent. Okay. But keep it up, and we'll talk soon. Kat Evanor saying when she's ready, we will. She doesn't want right now, and we're not going to force. No, I'm not saying to force her. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying that you guys all got to understand that she will take care of you guys, but she's the hub of the wheel. She's the one that's been traumatized. You guys are parts of her ego that are helping her deal with that valuable parts. Okay. Let's see. Peggy's saying, staying a victim. Ouch. I felt that. Now, Peggy, when I mean that is, I don't mean that as judgment. I mean that as motivation. If you, Peggy, were victimized by somebody, you've got to accept I was victimized. I had no power. This person victimized me. But I am going to work on that trauma so that I don't stay a victim, so that I don't stay in that victim mentality that tells me I have no power, I cannot heal. Okay? Didn't mean it to be ouch, okay? Please. But what I'm trying to do is encourage people to use their trauma to heal. That is what post-traumatic growth is all about. I don't know if you, Peggy, if you saw my live stream about post-traumatic growth, but that you can grow from your trauma, but you got to work on it. You got to be okay with the fact that you're still where you're at. Okay. You got to be okay that the trauma is still affecting you, and then you got to start working on it. So did not mean it to be an ouch. I hope it was a good ouch, kind of like something that helps you heal. So let's see. Before I log off, Kat Ivanor saying we know she's just unable to take control. That's cool right now. So we're picking her up and pushing her on until she's able to. Great. Sounds like you guys are all starting to work together. Excellent. Okay, people. So I don't know if I'm going to be on Tuesday night. I've got a little medical issue I got to deal with. So if I should be, but I don't know how that's going to go. Nothing serious, just something I got to deal with. But then Thursday night, we're going to have a parenting expert who has come up with some really great parenting cards and ways to help kids with their issues. And he's going to come on and we're going to talk about his work, how he helps people, how he helps kids, ADHD, the whole 9 yards. Okay. So thanks, Melissa. I'll post something if I'm not on Tuesday, but I'll start posting things about our guest on Thursday night. Okay. Last question for Steve. Is it wise to also accept that we may be a work in progress for the rest of our lives? Great question to end on. Absolutely, my brother. Absolutely. We are works in progress, maybe not for the rest of our lives, but we're works in progress until we get to a point where we're like, okay, cool. Maybe I don't need to work on myself so much. You're welcome. So it's kind of like lifting. It's kind of like working out. I don't know if you've ever worked out, but you can work out until you're, Arnold Schwarzenegger, or you could work out until you're just lean and look like a swimmer and healthy. It's a choice. But yes, Yes, you're welcome. Yes, it is a work, and we are works in progress. I'm 55 years old, man, and I still have things bubble up that I got to work on. And the difference between where I'm at now and where I was is a lot, if not the majority, if not almost completely. The self-hate is just about gone. Those days of me hating myself and putting myself down and, oh, you're so this and that and all of that because of the crap I went through as a kid. That is the whisper, if not even lower than that. Okay. That is one of the main things that was keeping me stuck. And I've worked through it. I talked it out with somebody. I worked on it. I dealt with it from a psychological, emotional, religious, all the perspectives you can imagine. All right. Okay, people, I got to go check on my kid. Um, keep working on yourselves. Don't give into this idea that you can never heal, and keep working on your relationship with yourself. Okay. Do not give in to the idea that you're broken for life. Do not believe that you cannot heal to a degree. Healing is embedded in us. That is who we are. We are like programmed, wired to heal. If we weren't, we'd be dead. Okay. Now the key is you got to work on it. You got to work on it from a perspective of talking it out, dealing with it, diminishing the self-hatred, and working through it. All right. So if I'm on Tuesday, I'll see you then. If not, definitely Thursday, where we're going to have a gentleman come on. He's a licensed psychologist, and he's going to talk about his parenting and his work and how he helps parents and kids and all of that. So please tune in. All right. And I'll post things on Facebook and YouTube in the community section. And by the way, if you're on YouTube and you're watching this, please subscribe. And engage with me on the community page. You know, I post things and I want to hear from people. All right. Okay, Jen, if you're still on, tonight's the beginning. Slow shift, little nudge. All right. All right, everybody. I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend. Peace out.